Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 126 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Alright, I've shot more points. I'm opening this up, moving down. I'm not seeing any big problems. You know, I don't think I need to shift her at all. I think she'll be just fine. The couple of little things that I, was concerned about, they're going to be resolved as we do drapery. I don't see any big problems. So I've got her elbow here. Her elbow is in right about here. This is extra material. It's heavy. And this is extra material, and I've got the front of her bicep, of her upper arm, pretty fat. This could drop back quite a bit. So right now, I'm going to wait. Till I get figured out where her hand is actually going to be before I do a whole lot on this arm. And as I mentioned, that gives you the opportunity to shift it just enough to keep it looking realistic. Because if we went ahead and committed it right now, and then we wish we could go up a little bit, her hand is going to have to crank really weird. And she's not going to look relaxed and calm. So I swung a few measurements off the model to try to lay out just the lines of where this die is going to be. I already did the foot down here, and I laid this out, and this is not as critical. The top of this die portion, we're going to leave that in order to match her arm to it the same way, because we're going to try to avoid having that big long arm that we spoke about. I want the agreement between these two to work really, really well, and so we can put a lot of this together, but leave some extra room to shift this arm a tiny bit. And then no matter what, that arm is going to be the last part of her that we really carve. We can put her shoulder together, but we've got to make sure that we've got her arm perfect. So this line here is not as critical. But I went ahead and shot this little thing here, just measured it up. Took a measurement, put it on, swung it, walked it out. Now we did the same thing here along the straight edge. And now this mark right here, again, this is somewhat arbitrary because we're creating this. I don't have a specific pattern that somebody sent me. I made my pattern. We're going to have the transition of this die, this curve, meet like that. And what we'll end up doing is we will carve, we want this to just flow really, really smoothly all the way down. And probably what I'll end up doing is I'll make a pattern from this eyeball piece. This curve is meant to be an echo or repeat. And you strengthen the design through repetition. That's one of the basic concepts that you use in this work. And by having multiple lines or multiple elements or multiple components that somewhat echo each other, they're either larger or smaller, or they're parallel, or even that when you get into symmetrical detail with symmetrical composition with asymmetrical detail. You may have things hanging on both sides, and you'll have an equivalent number of elements in each one, even if one side may be a swag of wheat and berries or whatever, and the other side will be some grapes with some leaves. You want them to be equivalent so that it looks balanced. One of the things we did during my apprenticeship that was a really big lesson was Andy cut the twins. I've mentioned them several times because the twins were mirror image of each other, and they were like mirror image. Like you could put one in front of a mirror and it looked just like the other one he cut. And because that's what the customer wanted. They wanted to be matching, and they wanted them to be mirror images. And so sometimes you do what the customer wants. the reality is that even if you've got identical twins, they're not identical. There's always one that looks a little different than the other, whichever one you're looking at. There's something about one that doesn't, the other one doesn't look quite the same. Their eyes are different, their hairs are different, there's a little difference in their jawline, whatever. By creating something that's perfectly matched, that's exactly the same, it can confuse a viewer. They won't think it's real. They'll think it's false. By creating detail that looks a natural detail, and when you got asymmetrical detail, by creating some variation but having the same number of elements or the same components, type of components, your mind processes it and you understand it, and so you don't get confused, so you can mentally, subconsciously digest what you're seeing very quickly because it makes sense. You know, somebody's holding, they may have been hunting and they're holding 2 ducks on one side and then they've got 2 decoys or 3 decoys on the other side. It's balanced. If they've got 10 decoys on one side and nothing in the other hand, there's no harmony in that. And so by having this curve, I could make the edge of this die straight. There's 2 reasons I'm not doing that. One is I want to repeat this curve because we're going to have similar curves here, similar lines with her drapery. And so this is going to fit in really well. The other part's a technical aspect from the production. If I have her standing to where she's sort of leaning or swaying in that direction, okay, and that's going to tend to create tension. If her drapery's pulled over the front here, the drapery's going to tend to pull, so it'll get those nice curves. The problem is that's going to tend to create a void over here, a hole. And if she's 8 inches plus deep, I got to dig a hole at least 8 inches deep in here. That may be feasible. The problem's going to be is creating this flat edge all the way down that's 8 inches deep that is axed to perfection, so that when the sun is just right, this doesn't look like it's all busted and wrecked and crooked, because this surface will actually look really rough in the right light, that way. And so by having this flourish, this at the base where it kicks out, this little foot, and we'll do it on both sides of the die, so we'll have symmetrical detail. Okay, this will be identical to the other side. Gives us a little bit more width. We've got enough die where you don't have to worry about it, so it works good. But we don't have to dig this out and clean it out and make it look good. It also gives the drapery a chance to snag on something and create a little bit of extra activity right in here where it folds over this edge. That'll look good. And then we change this from a long edge, because our sunlight, as the sun passes over this, the light's going to shine straight down this edge. On this straight edge, it'd be very easy to see any roughness or inconsistency in the surface. By changing this, we've moved this curve up here to where we've got at least 2/3 of the die below the curve where it starts. This ends up being very difficult because this is curved, so the light can't reveal any discrepancies as easily. You won't see it as easily. We've only got to clean up this little bit up here at the top. You know, we've got, not even a foot. You know, if this has to go another inch or two, we may have a foot to clean up. But that's up in the easiest place to reach on the whole stone as far as this edge goes. So we're saving ourselves work, but we're also preparing ourselves to do a better job with the work that we are producing. And so right now I'm not going to cut that. I'm going to keep pointing on this, but I wanted to set that up just to get an idea, because now that I can see her elbow, and you see the bulge of her thigh, it's starting to make sense. I want to start shooting some of this detail down around the bottom, and we'll put it right to work and make it happen. All right, back to cut. I'm shooting the points along the outer long feather on the wing to put that edge together. Now, as we approach this is important real estate, because that red line is the edge of our die. And so we got to be really careful. I probably won't cut right down to it. I'll leave some on there, at least to tip it, and I'll tip it to that line as I go up, so I've got a bevel there instead of a straight edge. If I cut that to a 45 with the bottom of that 45 on that edge, I never have to tool that actual corner. I can cut away and leave it, just like we've been doing before. But we got to be really careful. It's really important as I'm taking this away to not put a bunch of energy down into this, because if I fracture this edge, it'll crumble and fall away. So trying to undercut it really well, you go down and not go in big pieces. I can put the saw right on that line and whack it right off, and as long as nothing went wrong, it'd be great. But it's a lot more pragmatic to go at it in 2 or 3 steps, leave a quarter, a half inch on there, and then tip it. Then I'll have a nice edge, and I can tip it to make that red line really perfectly straight, all the way along. And then we've got a good edge, so if we drop a tool or bump it, we're not going to chip it. But once we get down to that red line, that's it. We can't go any further than that. We don't have any more stone. That's our 8 inches. So just go slow, be careful. But I'm going to start opening this up. I'm going to put the edge of the feathers all the way down to the bottom of the die, so I know exactly where her wing is. Those are the points I'm going to shoot next. We got this together, and I can get that, and then we can shoot some points down here and stretch it. All of this reducing area, we'll have to shift it down as we're stretching her an inch to make her an inch taller. But we've got to know where our edge is. So this is really careful. You got to be really super careful, because once we get down to this bottom, if we cut that and push it, it'll just blow a very big chunk right out of that edge, and we don't want to do that. Okay, back to cut. When you're using these diamond saws, you can't force them. The heat buildup's a pretty big issue. If your edge gets rounded, you got to dress it on your stone, your grinder, to square it up. Because if it's rounded, it'll tend to drift and go where you don't want it to. It'll cut more accurately if it's square. But you still have to put the saw in, and just basically especially if it's buried in a cut like this, and you press it, that butter will snap and break and just go crazy. You want to put it in the cut, whether you're dropping in the cut or you're cutting flat like this, and you want to just basically get some even pressure on it and let the stone slip into the saw, go into the stone as it can. Don't physically push it, because what will happen is if it bites, if it cuts, when it's brand new, they cut really well. But as it cuts, it'll get hot, and if you force it, it'll get hot faster, and then it'll just snag, it'll thermal, and it'll jerk and go, and it doesn't end well. So just put it in there and put some pressure on it and let it go, especially this one. You see this one, I'm down, and I've got, maybe, I bet it's not even 1/8 of an inch. Diamonds are almost gone on it. And that means I got to be really careful, because it'll heat up really fast. Go slow. Let the tools do the work. And your limiting factor here, because we're cutting this thin, will be your mounting arbor, where the actual mounts, because without it going in, once your cut gets to depth, your brass will start rubbing, and if you just keep pushing, you'll do to pick up that extra little tiny bit is eat up your brass, and you don't want to do that. All right, go slow. When you're in away from the edge like this, it's not as dangerous. You still have to be careful, but you could take like I'm using a chisel instead of a handset, and I'm just going to hit it just let it come off. But don't go hit it really hard, because you can develop the crack into this solid mass. When you get over here, you'll already have a crack, and that isn't good. But the more you can just kind of saw off here, the better off you are. See, that's holding really tight. And I've got a lot of detail to carve there. So I don't want to push it too hard, because I don't want to have cracks there that I got to work around. But I know that I'm going to be down near where this one is, so I'm still up quite an inch. I'm up about an inch. And the point I'm shooting for is just about flush with this. So we'll make another cut down in here just to get it started, and then I'll go ahead and tip that edge, make it strong. I got it undercut. I'm about a 1/4 inch up. I'm cutting up to bevel it off, and it'll crumble this edge away without stressing this, and as soon as I get some clearance, I'm going to tip that edge. I'm going to take a 2-blade and a bush chisel. Take a sharp, wide blade, wide chisel, just to lower that a little bit. You got to touch this up on. Grind it. What's going to happen is we get deeper, closer to that red line, is we're going to rub on it. Wipe it off. produce an edge like this. This is how you do a safe edge. Then we can reduce this down, we can cut in, and we can axe down, and theoretically, leave that little bit of red line, and if it survives, that'll be there at the very end. We'll wash it off. It'll be perfect. So you got to be careful sawing in like this, that you don't skew the saw up or down, that you keep it flat and square. And so I'm still in really good shape. Now I'm going to work on shooting the point. The point should be right over in here, and I'm thinking it's going to be right in here. But we'll leave that and we'll work this down as we get there. And we can cut this off, have this tall, because if this die ends up being 8 1/4, nobody's going to come out there and measure it. It's better that it's a little over, that's 8 or just a little bit over, than if it's 7 7/8 or 7 3/4. You start getting skinny, that's when you start getting into warranty issues. We don't want to do that. This is an 8-inch die, it needs to be at least 8 inches thick. Let's see how these compasses swing. See how they look. Yeah, see, the goal is to be right in line with that, so we're right here on the edge. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, and as we go deeper, this is going to come back. Okay, this compass is already passed. It's a little bit deeper because that's a high point. So this line we know is going to migrate this way. But this one, because we're diving deep, this is going to move towards it. So we've still got to go a little bit more. I'm probably going to take a stripe off here just to have clearance for my compass. I'll saw this over right on there. I'll just saw it over and take another little bit off. But this is going to move down. We're going to be just about exactly where this won't move as much. This will move in some. So we should be right in there. All right, cut some more stuff. Check this out. What a nice intersection down there. Probably can't hear me. It met really well. The compasses drop right in. And this other one. Right there. Now we'll clean this off some because there's a point I was going to shoot. There's elbow to this just a little bit. I'll work this down some and then we'll shoot that next point. Cut this off and we'll just chew it all off. Trim this off. I got a little lip right here that wasn't tipped. I'm going to go ahead and tip it so I don't have to. When you're doing this, think about when you're doing this and tipping an edge, trying to preserve a red line. Think about your posture. Don't rub your hand along that. Reach down. Try to get down and give yourself something for a reach, so where you're touching the stone and not on that line. Okay, it's one of those things, and it's obvious once somebody tells you, but until you do it, you won't figure it out until you rub that line off, and then you're like, well, man, I got to put a new line on. some carvers will have all their chisels. This is more common in a wood carving studio than anybody I've ever seen carve stone. They'll have all their tools laid up here with all their cutting edges towards you, so you can look at it and immediately grab the one you want, cut with it, then put it back and put it back in that same order. Everybody I know that cuts granite, carves granite like this, you're just wide open and the tools get put down, and I don't know anybody that actually keeps them organized. If you're carving in a relaxed, slow environment, yeah, it makes a lot more sense. And it makes sense in a production environment too, but it's not something that typically happens because you'll get mixed up and you'll put one down and it'll be facing the wrong way, and next thing you know there's two or three more like that, and they're all just what they are. But you can do it if you want. It's a good habit to get into. I'm not trying to knock it, I'm just saying we don't generally do it. Now, whenever you do anything with the saw blade, and you get into a corner, it's going to leave an arc, radius of circumference of the saw blade. When you want to take that out, take either a chisel or a ripper. Don't worry about going in like this or like this. Split it right in the middle. Right in the middle. That's the shortest distance to that corner. It's shorter than this plus this. Go in the middle and you can just break it right out and work the bottom off as you need to. Do it strictly right in the middle. Sometimes if it's small, all you need is just a chisel, but that's the best way to get that corner squared out. Keep that corner squared up so as we advance, we've got a nice point there. We shoot one more over here and lower those feathers. We just carry that right down here, right down to the corner. I think we've reached a good point. I'll wrap this video up. Just going to keep pointing. As you do this, like I said, I don't know, it's a great thing to do. You'll start figuring out just really how to shoot the points pretty fast once you really get into the groove, and it makes it really nice. So you'll get really intimately familiar with your different compasses, which ones work great, which ones work great in just limited areas. If you have a chance to get real compasses, when they fit the job, they're really great. And then the compasses you make, play with the designs a little bit. You may find out that you like some points, some of the actual legs, you may like them with just a small point, and you get a better benefit by having the compass longer so you can tip it back in versus having a really strong arc point, because depending on how you approach those strong arcs, sometimes the back of them will interfere, much like these will. You can only go so deep with it before you start they ramp out, they hit on the outside. So make some notes, try some. It's really hard to beat good thick ones that are nice and strong. Like I said, you don't have to use carpenter squares like I did. You can just get some sheet metal, and have, whether you cut it or whether you have somebody else cut out, lay them out and have them cut a bunch out, and then bend them the way you want, drill some holes, and you can make them pretty well. So, but anyways, appreciate y'all hanging around. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculptor Studio with a Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.